In the late 1970s, America was ready for a change. The Eisenhower dollar, which had been in circulation since 1971, was large, heavy, and often inconvenient to use in daily life. People preferred paper bills or smaller coins. The U.S. Mint wanted to introduce something new, a smaller, lighter, and more modern dollar coin that would fit comfortably into wallets, vending machines, and the fast-changing American economy. But the new dollar coin wouldn't just be about convenience. It would be about symbolism. For the first time in American history, the Mint decided to honor a real woman on a circulating U.S. coin. Susan B. Anthony, one of the most influential figures in the fight for women's rights and equality. Susan B. Anthony spent her life demanding justice and equal rights for women, including the right to vote. She stood against social norms, challenged the government, and dedicated every breath to the idea that women deserve the same opportunities as men. By placing her portrait on a U.S. dollar, the government was making a powerful statement, recognizing the strength and courage of a woman who changed history. When the new Susan B. Anthony dollar was officially released in July 1979, it marked a major milestone. Crowds gathered at banks and post offices to get their hands on the new coin. For many Americans, it was not just money. It was a piece of history, a tribute to women's empowerment, and a symbol of progress. The coin was smaller than its predecessor, the Eisenhower dollar, measuring just 26.5 millimeters in diameter and weighing 8.1 grams. It was made of a cupronickel-clad composition over a pure copper core, giving it a silvery shine similar to that of a quarter. The U.S. Mint promoted it as a convenient and modern alternative to the bulky dollar coins of the past. The goal was to make this coin a part of everyday life, from grocery stores to bus fares, from vending machines to banks. However, as the excitement settled, an issue began to surface. The public reaction wasn't entirely what the Mint expected. Some people were confused, others were critical, and a few were unsure if the change was even necessary. Still, at that moment, the Susan B. Anthony dollar represented hope, a step toward modernization and equality. It carried more than monetary value. It carried meaning. This was not just another U.S. coin. It was the first dollar to tell a story of struggle, courage, and change. And while it seemed destined for success, history would soon reveal that this coin's journey was far more complicated than anyone expected. After its historic launch in 1979, the Susan B. Anthony dollar immediately stood out, not because of its size, but because of its story. Every detail of this coin was designed to symbolize progress, equality, and the spirit of a modern America. On the front side, known as the obverse, the coin features a bold and determined portrait of Susan B. Anthony, facing right. Her expression reflects the strength and dignity that defined her life. Surrounding her portrait are 13 stars, representing the original 13 American colonies, a subtle reminder of the nation's roots and its ongoing struggle for freedom. Above her head sits the word liberty, while below, the year of minting, 1979, proudly marks its birth. The phrase, "In God We Trust," appears to the right, completing the classic American symbolism. The reverse side of the coin carries a completely different story, one of exploration, peace, and pride. It depicts an eagle landing on the moon, clutching an olive branch in his talons. This image was inspired by the Apollo 11 mission, when the first humans landed on the moon in 1969. The design symbolizes not just America's power, but also its hope for peace through achievement. The same reverse was previously used on the Eisenhower dollar, linking two generations of U.S. currency with a single message: we can reach for the stars. The coin's edge is reeded with fine vertical grooves, and it weighs 8.1 grams, smaller and lighter than its predecessor. Its metallic makeup is 75% copper and 25% nickel, layered over a pure copper core, creating a durable yet affordable coin for everyday transactions. But here's where things get interesting. The Susan B. Anthony dollar was minted at 3 U.S. Mint locations: Philadelphia, P. Denver, D. San Francisco, S. Each mint produced millions of coins, but collectors soon discovered small differences that made certain versions more desirable. The Philadelphia Mint coins marked with small p became famous for their wide rim and narrow rim varieties. The wide rim version, also known as a near date, has less space between the rim and the date, making a favor among collectors because it's harder to find. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins, beautifully struck pieces with mirror-like finishes meant for collectors rather than circulation. These proof coins, bearing the S Mint mark, are often the most visually stunning examples of the Susan B. Anthony series. The design itself was created by Frank Gasparo, the chief engraver of the United States Mint. Gasparo also designed the Eisenhower dollar, and he saw the Susan B. Anthony coin as an opportunity to honor both history and humanity. His goal was to capture Anthony's courage and intelligence in a single, powerful image, one that would inspire generations. However, despite the precision and artistry behind it, there was one problem no one could ignore. The Susan B. Anthony dollar was almost the same size, color, and feel as a Washington quarter. In everyday use, people struggled to tell them apart. This similarity would become one of the main reasons the coin circulation failed. But before that failure unfolded, the Mint had high hopes that this small, powerful dollar would finally win the hearts of the American people. When the Susan B. Anthony dollar entered circulation in 1979, the U.S. Mint believed it had created the future of American currency. It was modern, efficient, and carried a strong social message. Banks across the country were supplied with millions of coins. Vending machines were adjusted to accept them, and people lined up to exchange paper bills for this new, shining dollar. But within just a few months, something became very clear. The American public didn't like it. The biggest problem was size and appearance. The new dollar was only slightly larger than a quarter, just 2 millimeters wider, and it had the same silvery color and similar reeded edge. In fast-paced daily transactions, people constantly mistook it for a 25-cent coin. Imagine paying for a bus ride or using a vending machine, only to realize you accidentally spent $1 instead of a quarter. This confusion quickly turned excitement into frustration. The U.S. Mint and the Treasury Department tried hard to promote the coin. They produced advertisements, educational leaflets, and even sent officials to explain the difference between the quarter and the dollar. But it didn't help much. People simply didn't want to deal with the confusion. By the end of 1980, the Susan B. Anthony dollar had largely vanished from circulation. Banks were filled with unused rolls, and the public had gone back to using $1 bills. The idea of a small dollar coin, so common in other countries, just didn't fit American habits at the time. Still, the Mint didn't give up right away. They continued production for 3 years, 1979, 1980, and 1981, hoping demand would increase. Unfortunately, it never did. By 1981, the last coins were struck and stored away in government vaults, where they sat untouched for nearly 2 decades. Then, something unexpected happened. In the late 1990s, vending and transportation systems began to need dollar coins again. There was a sudden shortage of dollar bills suitable for machines, and rather than designing a new coin immediately, the government decided to reissue the Susan B. Anthony dollar in 1999. This time, people were surprised to see it return. It had become somewhat of a curiosity, a reminder of a failed experiment, but also a collectible piece of history. In total, about 900 million Susan B. Anthony dollars were minted across all years, a huge number for a coin that never truly circulated widely. Public reaction over the years has softened. Many Americans today see the Susan B. Anthony dollar not as a mistake, but as a misunderstood step toward progress. It represented an attempt to modernize U.S. currency, to honor a great leader, and to make everyday transactions easier, even if it didn't quite succeed. Ironically, the very confusion that doomed the coin also gave it character. It became a symbol of ambition, of trying something new, even if it didn't go perfectly. And while the coin's life in pockets and purses was short, its story was far from over, because what the Susan B. Anthony dollar lacked in popularity, it made up for in legacy, a legacy that would inspire future dollar coins, and a place in history that could never be erased. Today, decades after its release, the Susan B. Anthony dollar remains one of the most fascinating coins in U.S. history. It may not have been loved in its time, but has earned lasting respect among collectors and historians. What was once considered failure has now become a meaningful artifact, a coin that tells a powerful story about courage, equality, and change. In the world of coin collecting, the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar holds special appeal. Most circulated examples are still worth their face value, just $1. But certain versions and conditions can command impressive premiums. For instance, the 1979 P. wide rim, also called a near date, is much rarer than the narrow rim variety. In mint condition, it can be worth anywhere between $25 and $80, depending on its grade. Proof coins produced at the San Francisco Mint, marked with an S, are also highly collectible. These proofs were never meant for circulation. They were specially struck with polished dies and planchets to achieve a mirror-like shine and sharp details. A perfect proof example, graded PR70, can fetch prices well over $50, sometimes more of its par complete set. Collectors also seek error coins, such as double strikes, off-center prints, or even those accidentally struck on the wrong planchet. Such minting errors are rare and can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Each one adds another layer of intrigue to the story of this already unique coin. But beyond the market value, the true worth of the Susan B. Anthony dollar lies in what it represents. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real woman, not a symbolic figure or mythical character. It marked a milestone in American culture, a tangible acknowledgement of women's contributions to the nation's history. Although it was discontinued after 1981 and briefly revived in 1999, its spirit lived on in the next generation of U.S. dollar coins. The Sacagawea dollar, introduced in 2000 and later the Presidential Dollar Series, both owe their existence in part to groundwork laid by the Susan B. Anthony dollar. Without its lessons, both in design and circulation, those later programs might never have taken shape. For collectors and historians alike, this coin is a reminder that even unsuccessful ideas can pave the way for future success. It teaches us that innovation, especially when combined with meaning and respect for history, never truly fails. It simply evolves. So, if you ever come across a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar, take a moment to look closely. Notice the detail in her expression, the determination in her eyes, and the boldness of the design. You're not just holding a dollar. You're holding a story of progress, resilience, Android national pride. And perhaps that's the real treasure. If you enjoyed learning about this historic coin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Join us next time as we uncover more amazing stories from the world of rare and historic coins. Until then, keep collecting, keep learning, and keep the past alive.